Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 4, Text 23. Shri Shuka Uvacha Ityuddhavadupakana Sridham Dusaham Vadam Yanena Shamayat Shatta Shokam Utpatitam Buddha Ityuddhavad Upakarnya Suhridam Dusaham Vadam Yanena Shamayat Shatta Shokam Utpatitam Buddha Ityuddhavad Upakarnya Suhridam Dusaham Vadam Yanena Shamayat Shatta Shokam Utpatitam Buddha. Vaishnavis, Sri Shukavacha, Sri Shuka Goswami said, Iti, thus, Uddhava, from Uddhava, Upakarnya, hearing, Suhridam, of friends and relatives, Dusaham, unbearable, Vadam, annihilation, Jnanena, by transcendental knowledge. He said, after hearing from Uddhava all about the annihilation of his friends and relatives, the learned Vidura pacified his overwhelming bereavement by dint of his transcendental knowledge. Purport. Vidura was informed that the result of the battle of Kurukshetra was the annihilation of his friends and relatives, as well as the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, and also the passing away of the Lord. All these hurled him into bereavement for the time being, but because he was highly advanced in transcendental knowledge, he was quite competent to pacify himself by enlightenment. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, due to our long association with bodily relationships, bereavement on account of the annihilation of friends and relatives is not at all astonishing, but one has to learn the art of subduing such bereavement with higher transcendental knowledge. The talks between Uddhava and Vidura on the topic of Krishna began at sunset, and Vidura was now further advanced in knowledge due to his association with Uddhava. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This chapter in the third canto of Bhagavatam is introducing us to love of Krishna in separation. There's so much bereavement in this chapter. Indeed, it will end with Vidura crying, hearing the news that Krishna remembered him upon Krishna's disappearing from the ordinary vision of this world. And the dialogue between Uddhava and Vidura, part of which you heard so wonderfully explained by His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj the other day. The bereavement is more than we can fathom. Yet, there's a secret to all that bereavement. Now remember that Vidura had asked some questions to Uddhava. He knew the answers. He knew the Yadu dynasty was gone. He knew Krishna was gone from ordinary vision. But the scene was so stunning that Uddhava was actually asking, Prabhupada explains, Vidura was asking Uddhava, just out of needing psychological reassurance, and we can all understand that. However, besides the missing of friends and relatives, there was also a reality of this that's out of this world. Just by hearing those inquiries by Vidura, Uddhava was gone. Where was he gone? He was gone to Dwarka. Srila Prabhupada explains that Uddhava was demonstrating, giving us an example of how the pure devotee dwells on two planes simultaneously. And this dwelling on two planes is propelled by remembrance of Krishna. Vidura's questions helped Uddhava to remember more intensely Krishna, as if Uddhava had forgotten him. And that's a point we may get to later. Srila Jiva Goswami comments that actually Uddhava was gone for 48 minutes. But Krishna prodded him. Krishna, please, Uddhava, please go back down and answer Vidura's questions. What kind of experience is this? how is it that remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead brings about his presence? And we may hear that remembrance in separation brings about the most intense presence. So Uddhava, whose face was soaked with tears, and he's in an ecstatic state, gathers himself and begins to reply to Vidura. Krishna Jumani Nimloche, Ganeshra Ajagarenaha. The sun of the world has set, and our family house, the Yadu dynasty, has been swallowed by the serpent of time. How can I say anything more about anyone's welfare? And then we hear more of the dialogue between Uddhava and Vidura. But it's all couched in this feeling of separation from Krishna. Vidura recognizes that although Vidura is the age of Uddhava's father, from that point of view, senior, still Uddhava is demonstrating the heights of pure love of Krishna. For us, we can think, how is it that just by hearing questions about Krishna, Uddhava is gone to the spiritual world? His body apparently existing in the material world. These are quite astonishing subject matters. It happens quite often in Srimad Bhagavatam, such astonishment. It happens all the time in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Look at what happened to Pariksit Maharaj and Shukadeva Goswami after the Shukadeva Goswami relays the liberation, the death and liberation of Aghasura. Pariksit Maharaj asks what seems to be a routine question, pragmatic, practical, organizational. He asked that to Shukadeva Goswami. How is it that these young cowherd boys talked about the killing of Aghasura 1 year after it happened, as if the event happened on that very day? You know what happened, that for 1 year, Krishna had covered up what Brahma had done in the Brahma Vimohana Leela. And then when that scenario changed, the cowherd boys went home from the forest as usual, glorifying Krishna to each other. Today, Krishna killed a great serpent. But the reality is, it wasn't today. It was 1 year ago, during Krishna's Komara age. And now Krishna's in his Poganda age. So Pariksit Maharaj, you would say, very practical-minded, wants to know what's going on. He begins to surmise. He begins to bhakti speculate in a positive way. These are the cowherd boys. These are Krishna's associates. There's no way they're going to be bewildered by the illusory energy. There must be some potency of Krishna involved. And yes, as explained to us by Krishna's Yogamaya arrangement, the cowherd boys were under such a divine illusion. The event happened today. They told all the inhabitants, the elders of Vrindavan, it happened today. Did you see what Krishna did today? And they were talking about the apparent liberation of Aghasura as if it was It happened that very day. So Pariksit Maharaj is very concerned with this, and he'll be congratulated for his curiosity, his inquisitiveness, his concern by Shukadeva Goswami. Pariksit Maharaj will present himself. I'm the lowest of Kshatriyas, but I desire to hear this, and I'm so fortunate to be in your presence, Shukadeva Goswami. Why am I the lowest of Kshatriyas? Because you know what I did. I draped the shoulders of a Brahmana with a dead snake. This shows my lack of submissiveness to the Brahmanas. But I'm in your presence, and please explain to me, because you may say it's confidential, but when the disciple presents himself properly, humbly, it's the duty of the guru to explain even esoteric subject matters. So this is a confidential subject matter, the acharyas explain, not because it's some kind of hidden secret. It's confidential because this post-dating of the cowherd boys talking about Aghasura's killing, it's this delay in their telling it. It's something that is difficult to understand. And in fact, Shukadeva Goswami will explain the whole Brahma Vimohana Leela is confidential because it's so hard to be comprehended. Not that someone's holding the secret and not telling anyone. Pariksit Maharaj encourages Shukadeva Goswami even more. You can tell me because I'm fortunate. And Shukadeva Goswami verifies the good fortune of Pariksit Maharaj. Your Mahabhaga, you have the great fortune. You're Bhagavatottama, you're the best of devotees. But before Shukadeva Goswami can answer, he's gone. Krishna, the acharyas explain, took control of his senses, stole his senses. So Shukadeva Goswami is stunned. He can't answer. And there he is, you know, the scene with Shukadeva Goswami speaking and Parikshit's listening, and all the sadhus and rishis and yogis have gathered. He's not replying. Why? Just hearing those apparently ordinary questions by Pariksit Maharaj, almost mundane questions. Why did this event, which happened a year ago, why was it talked about today? Seemingly ordinary question, but it's a question about Krishna Leela. And so Shukadeva is gone. But Pariksit Maharaj, being the expert administrator and practical organizer, was ready for Shukadeva to go into a trance. He and his son, Maharaj Janamejaya, had kirtan instruments ready by their side. They had conch shells, they had drums, they had kartels, all ready for when Shukadeva Goswami loses it. And so they all started making a kirtan. And Narada Muni and Vyasadeva were also present, and they joined in. And in that way, Shukadeva Goswami came back. But I love hearing how Krishna stole Shukadeva Goswami's senses, showing us so ecstatically who is the proprietor, who is the master of our senses. So upon the return of Shukadeva Goswami, he congratulated Pariksit Maharaj. You're so fortunate. And he had to tell Pariksit Maharaj twice. You're Mahabhaga, you're the most fortunate, you're Bhagavatottama. That's what's said by Shukadev to Pariksit. Why do you have to say such things twice? Because Pariksit Maharaj was starting to lose it. Pariksit Maharaj was feeling the pain of separation. He's remembering, Krishna saved me when I was in the womb of my mother. So there's so much of this feeling of separation from Krishna going on. And then Shukadeva Goswami tells him, why are you so fortunate? Because Pariksit Maharaj could have asked, why are you calling me Mahabhaga? Why are you calling me Bhagavatottama? Best of devotees, most fortunate. And Shukadeva Goswami, it's his duty. I'm not just falsely complimenting you, Pariksit Maharaj. You're displaying the symptoms of someone who every time he hears about Krishna, it's ever fresh. So Prabhupada gives a very important purport that this shows that the difference between an unadvanced devotee and an advanced devotee is that an advanced devotee hears Krishna's pastimes again and again, and each time those pastimes remanifest as if the devotee never heard them before. So this is Shukadeva Goswami's criterion for glorifying Pariksit Maharaj. You're hearing like that. And he further explains that those who are truly Paramahansas, they are Sada Brit. They know what the essence of life is and how to get it. And for them, the topics of Lord Krishna appear newer and newer, fresher and fresher, in the same way that materialists would love their materialistic topics to appear ever fresh. Of course, we know they never do. But Shukadeva Goswami uses that as an example of comparison. Materialists love to talk about material topics as if those material topics have such nectar in them. But the real delight, which is truly ever fresh, is hearing about Krishna's pastimes and asking about Krishna's pastimes. What does this do for the world? You might think, how do these incidents of devotees hearing questions that take them to the spiritual world, how can that improve the situation of the world? That was always my ambition during my karmic sojourn. I was always thinking how to solve all the world's problems. Certainly I wasn't behaving in a way to solve all the world's problems, but let me tell you, in glorification of Srila Prabhupada, how Prabhupada, to me, handled this ambition I had. My first year at university, my academic advisors said, okay, what do you want to study? This is Yale University. The world is at your command. I told them, I want to find the knowledge that can solve all the world's problems. Well, I wasn't thinking about bhakti, I can assure you that. So don't clap. So the professors looked at me and said, well, very good. This is what the university is actually meant for. But most persons want fame and money, and you'll get that. You'll have a Yale degree, but we're going to give you a special dispensation. For 4 years, you can study whatever you like and see if you find the solution of all the world's problems. Study whatever you like. We'll put it together under some kind of degree, and don't worry. You have a Yale degree, your life is successful. So I did that. And before I left these academic advisors, left their office, they said, and by the way, if you happen to find a solution to all the world's problems, come and let us know. So for 4 years I did that. And then my conclusion was, I haven't found it. I haven't found the answer. But it was always on my mind. Flash forward. I'm sitting in front of Srila Prabhupada 8 months later after graduation. Right in front, just like Prabhupada is here, I'm right there. I had dressed, I wasn't a full devotee yet, but I dressed appropriately for the occasion. I cut down my Sai Baba hairstyle. I went to an Indian boutique and got an Indian kurta because my fancy shirts had fringes coming from the sleeve, and I was wearing my embroidered pants, the epitome of a pseudo New York Ivy League enjoyer. Not simply New York, but Manhattan. So there I was looking like that, sitting in front of Prabhupada. And I had been reading his books 4 hours a day for 6 months straight, but I would never go to the temple because I thought, these books are wonderful, but what can these Hare Krishnas do to solve the world's problems? It was still on my mind. So now I'm sitting in front of Prabhupada, and unfortunately, I can't find the recording of the lecture. Prabhupada is lecturing on the prayers of Queen Kunti, I believe. And so I'm soaking up the nectar, but I'm thinking, but how is this going to solve the world's problems? All of a sudden, and I don't recommend you do this unless you have a tiny drop, at least, of Prabhupada's love and compassion. I don't suggest you imitate this, but I'm just telling you what happened. I'm sitting in front of Prabhupada as he's explaining about Kunti Devi, the Pandavas. I'm just soaking it all up, but in the back of my mind, great, wonderful, this is it, but how's this going to practically solve the world's problems? All of a sudden, Prabhupada starts roaring, if you're optimistic about material life, you are an animal. If you're a human being, you must be pessimistic. Only an animal is optimistic about material life. I felt like a shower of flower petals. Not like I was hit with razor blades or arrows, as if I had such a thing to someone. I felt like I was being covered with flower petals as Prabhupada roared on, repeating, if you're a human being, you must be pessimistic. I was so happy. This is the conclusion of my research. And then Prabhupada finished his lecture by saying, but in Krishna consciousness, everything is optimistic. Let's go to Srimad Bhagavatam and see Krishna himself giving instruction about transcendental bereavement, feelings of separation, the pain of missing Krishna. There had just been an extraordinary incident in Dwarka of Krishna losing it, hearing about Braj and his devotees. Narada Muni had set this all off by glorifying Braj. Narada Muni had come to Dwarka and was glorifying Braj, and Narada Muni lost it into ecstatic symptoms, and then Krishna went into the deepest bereavement and grief. So the scene there in Dwarka was that the devotees had just recovered from drowning in an ocean of Krishna's anguish about Krishna's remembrance of Braj. And so Uddhava was worried this could happen again. So what was going on is that Krishna again started talking about the glories of Braj, and Uddhava did something about it. He's Mantri Raj. He's the best of Krishna's advisors. So Uddhava arranged. He called Krishna's wives, Satyabhama, Rukmini, surround Krishna, put your head on his feet, cry. Sanatana Goswami's commentary, so wonderfully translated. By the way, if you get a chance, this BBT version of Brihad Bhagavatamrita, with all respects to all other versions, is impeccable. I call it the gold standard of Shastra productions after the disappearance of Prabhupada. So they couldn't, the wives of Krishna couldn't pacify him in the same way that the gopis could, but they did their best. And while they're crying at Krishna's feet, consoling him, Uddhava makes sure that Devaki and Rohini have gone to the kitchen to prepare lunch, because he knows, Uddhava knows, that when lunch comes, the whole scene changes. Balaram had also checked out. Balaram was seen. This is getting, once again, to be an emotionally overloaded scene. I need to take a bath. I'm leaving. So in that way, Uddhava successfully orchestrates the scene. This is how dear a devotee he is to Krishna. And so Balaram comes back. And then Uddhava points out to Krishna, Narada Muni is at the door. So Krishna asks, why is he just standing at the door? It's Narada Muni. No one would dare bar him from access to the palace. Why is he standing at the door? Krishna knows, but he's asking. Narada Muni was feeling embarrassment and guilt. The last time I showed up, I set off this huge scene of devastation and lamentation. I feel sad about that. But Krishna personally went to the door, brought Narada Muni in, and Krishna bowed to Narada Muni. And then Krishna explained, you are actually my best friend, because you have triggered these remembrances of Braj, and in that way, you've helped me to relieve my feelings of separation. Now, you then find such an extraordinary explanation of the pain of pure love, explained by Krishna himself, that the pain of separation is assuaged. It turns into the pleasure of meeting. So you would say, oh, that makes sense. No pain, no gain. Pleasure follows after pain. Okay, at first we think like that. That first you have to suffer the anguish of separation from Krishna before the bliss of being with Krishna takes over. And Krishna starts to explain like that. Krishna says that feelings of separation are like a blazing forest fire, and the devotee is filled with guilt, remorse, and the deepest sorrow. Where is Krishna? I've never had Krishna. So you would say, all right, I can understand. The deprivation leads to gratification. First you suffer this premagni, the fire burning you, the fire of prem, and then the nectar of being with Krishna. It seems like Krishna is going to say that, and he sort of does, but then he goes deeper, and he says, actually, the pain of separation is better than the joy of meeting. Now, how could that be? The commentary deals with the neophyte mind that we have. Pleasure should follow pain, but how within, please focus on this point, how within pain can there be pleasure? That is the point that Sanatana Goswami explores so deeply, and it's so fascinating. Actually, Krishna explains that the pain of Premagni is relishable in of itself even more than the joy of meeting. The more we understand this point, the more we understand the highest mysteries of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. A beautiful example given in the commentary. Ice. When you take some ice out of the freezer and put it on your arm, how does it feel? It feels like it's burning. But does ice burn? No, ice numbs you. But apparently it burns you. This is a common experience of anyone. Similarly, the agony of pure love seems like it's burning, but to ordinary perception, but actually it's giving the greatest pleasure. Isn't that a beautiful example given by Sanatana Goswami? So within the pain of separation from Krishna, this chapter about Vidura and Uddhava is all about pain, and we just talked about Krishna himself going through pain of separation. Within that pain is the greatest pleasure, and Krishna himself explains that. In fact, Krishna underlines his point by saying, there are devotees, some of us, some devotees, who always want to feel that pain of separation. Who is he talking about? He's talking, first of all, about himself. Not, he's a Supreme Personality of Godhead, not a devotee. But he's talking about the residents of Vrindavan. They always want to feel this separation from Krishna because it's the highest. In that feeling of separation is the highest bliss. When I say it's the highest bliss, it's the most intense way to be with Krishna. They're not thinking of their own happiness, but nevertheless, these feelings, Krishna himself explains, are so sweet, even though it seems like you're burning in fire, that the devotees want it. So that's the proof. Sanatana Goswami says that's the proof that within pain, the transcendental pure pain, there is pure pleasure. The flow of the logic is so beautiful. And so there's an exception, however. Krishna is not talking about the gopis, because the gopis don't aspire to always feel separation. Sanatana Goswami explains the gopis constantly live in separation from Krishna, even when they are with Krishna. They're in anxiety. We're going to lose him. We're going to lose him. So that's the exception. So again, Krishna congratulates Narada Muni. You've been a friend. Even if you may have a beloved, and you always remember that beloved, but if someone comes along and especially amplifies your remembrances by talking about your beloved in a special way that triggers deeper remembrance, that person is your friend. In other words, Narada Muni, you have done me the greatest benefit. Therefore, ask me whatever benediction you want. And Narada Muni starts playing his veena, chanting Krishna's Braj names, Yasoda Nandana, Nanda Nandana, Putana Mochana, Nanda Kumar. he's first thinking, let me please Krishna with kirtan before I ask the benediction I want. So then Narada Muni calms down and he asks for the benediction. Krishna, make it so that whoever gets your mercy, whoever gets devotional service, whoever gets prema, never gets enough of it. They're never satisfied. They always want more and more. Grant that benediction. What does Krishna reply? Narada Muni, that's eternally always the case. Whoever gets my mercy to begin devotional service, whoever gets devotional service to practice, whoever develops Krishna prema never thinks they have enough. This is built in. This reality is built into the situation of mercy, devotional service, and prema. So why, in other words, why are you asking this? Narada Muni knows the answer, of course, but Narada Muni wants to hear Krishna himself explain about this subject matter. He's giving Krishna an opportunity. Please, you talk about it. That's the benediction, the first benediction Narada Muni asked for. If you want to know more, you'll have to read the book. But let me give you a practical example of how Srila Prabhupada could take all that esoteric, highest divine knowledge and present it to someone who you would say didn't have all the qualifications. But yet Prabhupada successfully gave that person some insight into pure love of Krishna in separation. The musician George Harrison was sitting before Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was explaining to him about love of Krishna in separation. Prabhupada gave a beautiful example I'll never forget, that he said, the sun is shining in the sky. When the sun disappears behind the clouds, what do you feel? So all the devotees present gave the immediate logical answer. We feel cold. Sounds correct, right? Prabhupada said, no, you feel separation from the sun. That, meditating on that example will totally switch your mind around. So, I remember as a young Sankirtan devotee, seeing His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu here reminded me how we were distributing books, Prabhupada's books, at a George Harrison concert in a big arena, 15,000 young people. And so we had brought in, we were ready, we had brought in somehow boxes of Krishna books. And we were standing in the aisles. I was standing there waiting for any magic moment. We would distribute before the concert started as people were sitting down, and then waited during the concert for the most opportune moment. And it came. George Harrison announced from the stage, I'm here with Uncle Ravi Shankar, and I'm going to do a song called, I Miss You, Lord Krishna, Where Are You? So I gathered up like 50 Krishna books, and I was ready. As soon as George finished his song, I miss you, Lord Krishna, where are you? I yelled out, Krishna book, Krishna book. 100 people jumped out of their seats, stormed towards me with money in their hands. In 5 minutes, 50 persons had taken all my Krishna books. They were in a delirium. So I could see, it wasn't just George's celebrity status. Prabhupada had given him a glimpse. And that glimpse was able to be taken advantage of as these persons went mad just hearing Krishna book after the musician finished playing. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So you're thinking, how can hearing and questioning about Krishna solve the world's problems? There's no doubt the world is in a troubled state. It is said that the greatest catastrophe right now is that no one has learned from the catastrophes of the 20th century. World War I, 25 million people dead. World War II, 80 million people dead. Yet, the forces of destruction are simply increasing. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Shayaya Jagato Hitat. They're expert at destroying the world. Last year, in just 2023, $83 billion was spent by the 9 nuclear powers. $83 billion in 1 year on nuclear armaments. That's over $150,000 per minute. And they already have enough to cause such havoc. One nuclear submarine carries enough nuclear devastation power that exceeds what was dropped on Hiroshima or Nagasaki by 2,000 times. That's just one submarine. Next comes not simply nuclear weapons on the land, air-based, ocean-based, now it's space nukes, satellite-based nuclear weapons. You wonder, have human beings gone mad? And then, because this is a polycrisis, that's the latest term, so many crises all intersecting at the same time, political, economic, environmental, military conflict. So the young person these days, when I say young, between the age of 16 and 25, is pessimistic. When I was speaking at the glorious Govardhan Eco Village project to a yoga group that was staying there, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj pushed me into saying something. I explained a latest survey, the biggest international survey done of young people between the age of 16 and 25 on how they're reacting to climate change. This survey, done by Stanford, scholars from Stanford, Oxford, other universities, studied the youth in the US, Canada, Australia, UK, India, France, Germany, 10 countries. And these are the statistics they came up with, that 75% of young people today are fearful of the future. 75%. 51% think that humanity is doomed. And 33% are doubting if they'll ever have children. They don't want to bring children into such a world. So there is a great focus now on rethinking human life. Well, who are we? What are we doing here? And how can we believe in the world? What's the world for? And here we are, coming forward with Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan mission. The only hope for getting people effectively out of the bodily concept of life. Whenever there's trouble, whenever there's doubt, existential crisis, what do people do? They go deeper into the bodily conception, as if that bodily identification will give them strength and protect them. So what do they take shelter of? There are 5 things, all beginning with a C. Class, culture, country, creed. What's the one? Class. Oh, color. Class, color, country, creed, culture. They take more shelter of this, as if this is going to save them. They don't know how to relieve this problem. And in fact, they don't even consider it a problem. Some political scientists today are thinking, since nationalism is so inherent in people, you can't stamp it out, we've got to figure out a way to make nationalism beneficial. Let's figure out a way to make the bodily conception that I'm from this country. Let's find out a way to make it beneficial, and in that way, we make the best use of it. That's the solution. There's some illusion, because we know it's Maya, that at the core of these 5 aspects, class, country, color, creed, culture, there's something that's going to unify people and bring them together in harmony. We're from the same country. Let's unite. We're from the same, we got the same color. We're together. We have the same culture. We're from the same class, economic class. We're going to work together. It never happens. But there's an illusion that makes you think it's going to happen. And that's the problem. Who has the knowledge? As we hear, the learned Vidura pacified his overwhelming bereavement by dint of his transcendental knowledge. Where is that knowledge going to come from? Where is the process that can cleanse the heart thoroughly so that we can rise above these material designations? Only the Harinam Sankirtan can do that. So we express our gratitude to Srila Prabhupada for actually showing how to solve all the world's problems. And we could go on talking about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his demonstration of the agony and sweetness of pure love, but our time is running out. And here we are, just remember one last point. Here we are in Navadvip Dham, but don't forget, Navadvip Dham is non-different from Vrindavan Dham. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that the mercy of Krishna, and when you say Krishna, actually you're meaning Radha Krishna. The mercy of Krishna appears in 2 ways, because Kali Yuga needs such strong medicine. The mercy of Krishna appears by Vrindavan becoming Navadvip Dham. And the mercy of Radha Krishna combines to appear as Sri Gauranga. They're both the same, Navadvip, Vrindavan. That's why Jiva Goswami asked Nityananda Prabhu, I've been ordered by Mahaprabhu to go to Vrindavan, but if Navadvip is the same as Vrindavan, why do I have to go? Nityananda told him, this is a very confidential subject matter, and don't talk about it until after Mahaprabhu finishes his manifest pastimes. Then you can talk about it. So we find out, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes in Gita Mala, that when you are able to see Navadvip as the same as Vrindavan, then start talking about Brajaras. Otherwise, so we have such a great treasure. And finally, I always remember something Prabhupada said in Los Angeles about his own books. He said, this is 1976, he said, my books are like a pharmacy, or some people in some countries say chemist, where you go to get your prescriptions filled. My books are like that pharmacy. They contain topics, they contain medicines for every level of devotee, from the most neophyte to the most advanced. This is an inconceivable achievement, what Prabhupada has done. What kind of teacher, what kind of master is this that just visualize a grand piano, not an electronic keyboard, but a grand concert piano, and someone masterfully playing every key from the bottom to the top. That's what Srila Prabhupada has done with his books. These Chaitanya Charitamrita volumes that you have contain the deepest transcendental mysteries of separation. You'll find out. I was shocked to hear from Banu Maharaj how His Holiness Banu Maharaj, how before Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Chaitanya Charitamrita wasn't around. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had to struggle to find a copy. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll find everything from Harinam Sankirtan, preaching Bhagavad Dharma, to the mysteries of Krishna and Radharani combining as Gauranga, and how Lord Chaitanya takes three different postures, you might say. He takes on the emotions. He demonstrates the emotions of Srimati Radharani. He sometimes takes her position and appears as Srimati Radharani. And he sometimes demonstrates being an assistant, a maidservant of Srimati Radharani. It's all going on in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But first, we need to become fit to serve. And that means getting out of the bodily conception of life at the very least, and attached to devotional service, dedicating our lives to the mission of Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki.